This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network. I am your host, Mark. Blues guitarist Albert Cummings is my guest on this episode. And although music is literally in his DNA, he got a bit of a late start playing it. He didn't even start out on guitar. There was a trumpet and the 5-string banjo before he started playing the blues. But after a friend suggested he play at a wedding, he was hooked. He formed his first band, Swamp Yankee, recorded his first album, 11 tracks, in one 90-minute recording session. But it worked. He got a slot as a local headliner at a music festival, and one offhand remark, along with that Swamp Yankee album, got him hooked up with Double Trouble. That experience was so good for all of them that it led to them recording an album together. He's also played with legends like Buddy Guy and B.B. King, but Albert tells me how difficult the blues can be. Not only is it hard to sound unique, but once you're settled with that classification, it's not always easy to change your style. He's got a new album out called 10, and yes, it's his 10th release. He's got high hopes for it too. So pick it up at albertcummings.com or wherever you get music. His social media accounts are there too. Follow us at PerformanceANX, and you can give us a hand with merch at performanceanx.threadless.com or with some coffee at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. And leave your blues cliches out here, because Albert Cummings and I are having none of it on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Albert Cummings. You're listening to Performance Anxiety. Check out my new album 10, and thanks a lot for listening. How's that? Yeah, read it right off the script.
Thank you for coming on. I've really been enjoying the new album. It's really solid, man. It's really good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think so too, but I can't say that myself, but it's really like it's a fun album for me to listen to still. I still like to listen to it.
Oh, that's awesome. But what I like to do is to find out how you got into it in the first place. And your story's a little different than a lot of people. Because you didn't get into music immediately. I mean, it took you a while, but
it took me a long time.
When did you really get into music? Was there a lot of music in the house growing up, or were you playing instruments at that time?
It was. When I was a little kid, my father played. Well, right around the year that I was born, my father gave up playing. He was in a band, kind of in a, back then, a band could actually play 2 gigs a day. You know what I mean? And he still had a construction business and all that, but he did it as a hobby and as a fun thing. And it's how he met my mother, actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, in 1956. Or 1955, I think, is when they met. He was playing in a band, and my mother came in, and so I don't think I've ever told anybody that. That just came up out of my head. That's into the archives already.
That's awesome.
But he used to play, so there was always a guitar around the house, and like the band that he had, it was like the big band era type music. So he was into the Moonlight in Vermont and Stardust and, all the great old songs, really complicated songs. And if one of I'm the youngest of 4 children, my 3 older sisters, if one of my sisters got married, my father's band would be the band. I don't know if they ever had choices or not.
That is great.
But the same on any of the other band members, any of their kids got married, the band would come in and play.
Nice.
And they could pull it off. They could play all the songs, and they certainly weren't playing any top 40 songs, but they were playing all the old classics. You could go out and dance to them.
Yeah, wedding appropriate songs.
I would see my father play that once in a while, and I was always inspired by that as a young kid, and he always had a guitar hanging around the house. So I was, until I was about 14, 15 years old, I couldn't even get my fingers around the necks. My father, like his acoustic guitar hung out, it was like you could sleep under the action on the thing. Just there was no way you could possibly get anything to sound, but he'd pick it up and play it. It was like, how do you get any sound out of that thing? But, I don't know if you know my story, but I started out on 5-string banjo because a friend of my father's was fooling around with banjo, and he said, "Hey, try this out. Maybe this would work for you." And I played trumpet. I was playing trumpet in high school, and
okay.
And I tried the banjo. I could put my hand around the neck really easy. So, he's like, I've been learning this little lick. I remember this little lick is a 3-2-5-1, 4-2-5-1. If you're a banjo player, that's the dominant lick, 3-2-5-1, 4-2-5-1. He said, just take the banjo home tonight. And he said, just practice that lick. He says, I've been practicing it for a long time. He says, I can't quite get it down. It's just finger exercise. So I'm like 10 years old, 11 years old. And I was like, it's like, and I had it down. He comes by the next day. He says, how'd you do it? I'm like, here it is. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So, he was very encouraging. His name was Truman McLean, and he was just a sweetheart of a guy that really started my path, because I couldn't really touch any other instruments. And, so then as I got a little older, I was about 14, 15, I'd grab that acoustic, and my father would show me a few chords, like the basic chords. Right. And, I could ask him like twice. And after that, it'd be like, yeah, my father was like, maybe you're not cut out for that. Maybe that's not you, in other words, pay attention. Yeah. And he gave me that boost by being that way. You know what I mean? I think he had a plan at it, because he did it on everything. Oh man. At least I like to think that now that I'm older. I mean, I can look back and say, wow, now, that really worked for me. Yeah. I started fooling around with guitar, and I didn't do anything with guitar. I went through all those years from 15 through age 27, and I went and I was fooling around with a guitar, and I had bought a couple guitars, and I was like, just dibbling with them a little bit and playing them. And I could play all the chords, and I could play bar chords, and I was messing around with writing a few songs here and there. And okay. And we went to a friend's wedding, and there was a band from New York City. I don't remember their name. I wish I could to this day. And my friends encouraged me to get up and play with this band. And I was like, oh no, I've never played with a band before. And I'm 27 years old. I've never been on a stage really with a guitar, maybe with a banjo. I was fooling around and playing with different bluegrass bands and things. So I got up and played, and something just hit me like a freight train. It was literally, this happened that day on that stage. And it was like, this is something that makes me feel a certain way that I have to pursue. And wow. Little did I know where I was headed. I had no idea. I that same night, a guy that I did not know at the time, his name was Phil Remillard, and he got up and he was like one of these guys who could play a little of every instrument. He got up and played piano with the band at the same time I did. And we got off stage, and somebody introduced me to him, and he says, I play guitar too. He said, let's get together and play guitar once in a while. I said, all right, that sounds great. So we got together for like a year, maybe a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. We'd get together. I remember every Thursday night we'd get together and just go. He worked at this place called the Mountain Goat and a bicycle store. And we'd get out in the basement of this place and set up our little amps, and we'd just kind of teach each other things that we knew about guitar. Oh, that's awesome. We both got better really quickly because of what we were teaching each other. And then somebody came to us and said, hey, we got this gig, and could you guys cover it? And we're like, well, we're not a band. We're just fooling around with guitar. And they said, well, I mean, could you guys cover it? And we thought about it, and Phil says, well, I could play bass. I said, well, who are we going to get for drummer? So we knew this guy that played drums, who at the time happened to be, when I was in high school, he was one of my English teachers in high school. His name was Bill Palmy. And wow. Us got together, and it was like fun. And we played this gig, and I have a picture of this gig. I still have. I've been waiting for the right time to frame it. I should, but it's the first picture, my first gig I ever played. Wow, that is awesome. Yeah, and it just started going from there. And then I had a buddy from Pennsylvania who was like this creative. He's like a legal genius, and he's a fun guy, and he's just like, he's got this huge laugh. And I remember I was out with him one night, and I said, what should I name my band, Sam? And he thought about it for a minute. He says, Swamp Yankee. And I was like, Swamp Yankee? What does that mean? He says, it means white trash. Oh, I've never heard that. That's awesome. Name of the band. And that's what I went under for a few years. It was Swamp Yankee. then it just started to like take off. And the next thing I knew, I got a gig opening for Kansas.
Oh man.
Yeah, and I really didn't even know what Kansas did or anything. I knew Dust in the Wind a little bit and stuff, and I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And they said, just go play your music, Albert.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Hey guys, I've got some great news. Performance Anxiety and Pantheon Podcasts are giving away an exclusive VIP experience to see Nick Mason's Saucer Full of Secrets. So head to pantheonpodcast.com/Nick Mason to enter. Find the link in the show description or head over to our Twitter, Facebook, or Nick Mason's Facebook page for the link to enter to win. Head over to pantheonpodcast.com/Nick Mason to enter. Find the link in the show description or head over to our Twitter, Facebook, or Nick Mason's Facebook page for the link to enter to win front row seat upgrades, a very special commemorative guitar pick shaped necklace carved down from a drum cymbal played by Nick Mason himself. You also get a selection of curated exclusive VIP merchandise, including a VIP laminate and lanyard, crowd-free shopping at a dedicated merchandise stand before the show, and on-site perks such as priority check-in, VIP express lane into the venue for ease of entry, and a dedicated customer service line. Nick will be playing in my area at the Lincoln Theater in D.C. on September 27th. And I'd love to meet up with a DC winner at the show. So enter now at pantheonpodcast.com/Nick Mason. Winners will be notified via email 1 week prior to the event, so enter now. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships or at work, not dealing well with the stress. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Try doing that in person. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And a special offer to Performance Anxiety listeners, you can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/performanceanxiety. That's betterhelp.com/performanceanxiety. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. Wow.
And it started, and then it just, here I am talking to you.
It culminated in tonight.
It's the pinnacle of my entire career, man.
So you're just kind of playing, having fun with it. How did you go from just playing for your friends and opening for Kansas on the odd occasion to recording and releasing your first album? That was
the first album I ever put out was called Albert Cummings and Swamp Yankee.
Right, the Long Way.
It was called The Long Way, and we had done one recording before that. It was a 3-song cassette tape.
Oh wow.
I think I stumbled onto one of those the other day, still in its package. I was like, oh, that thing's gotta get that frame too.
Dude, shadow box.
Yeah, and all these in a barn or in some box somewhere. I'm never gonna find it again, but it'll come up. So I remember when we went to do it, I remember the drummer I had at the time. I'd already switched. My band evolved a lot in the beginning because some guys are like, I can't go gig with you on a Thursday night. I gotta work Friday, and
right.
I'm like, I want to do this. I'm going to work Friday and gig Thursday night. And that was nuts. I was like, it was feeding me. And so I remember the drummer that was I think the second drummer I had. Every time he'd mess up, he'd stop. Cause you go into the studio and it's like, I mean, this isn't rocket science here. So we got safety nets all over. This called Pro Tools, or even then it was easy.
Yeah,
that was in the early '90s or late. Yeah, that was. Geez, I don't even know when that was. Yeah, it was probably around late 90s. Yeah, it was late 90s when this was going on. So I said, well, we need a serious album for venues, because we were starting to get gigs all over. I started to go to Albany, New York, which is about an hour from me here.
Okay.
And there's literally no places to play around. Nobody goes to see live music around here. That's just not there's not even a place to go see it. You know what I mean? You'd have to drive an hour anyways to go see it. It's like, maybe you could find an acoustic guy or something at a venue somewhere, but it's not a thing around here anyway. Okay. So I had to go to Albany, where there was some people, and I started to get a really quick following in Albany. People started to come to shows, and I was getting, I got on the big blues festival there, and I got written up in the Albany Times Union paper a bunch of times, and
nice.
bingo started to happen. So I said, well, I need a really good demo. So we went to this place. It was Cotton Hill Studios, which isn't there anymore, but we went in, and I told the drummer, I said, if you stop, you're paying for the whole thing, man. Just play. Right. And we went in, we did 11 songs in an hour and a half. Just turned around, walked out. It was like a set, right? We just went into the set. And that's how I thought you made an album, right? I thought, well, that's easy. Just go in for an hour and a half. Nothing to it. So anyways, that album started to get me more gigs. And then there's RPIs here, Rensselaer Polytech Institute. And it's like the MIT of New York, and it's big school in Troy, New York. And they used to have a venue there, and it's still there, but they don't really have concerts anymore. It was called the RPI Fieldhouse. And they called and said, we want to have like a blues day of all music at the Fieldhouse, and we want you to be the local headliner. And who do you think we should get for a national headliner? And I swear to God, I jokingly said, well, why don't you get Double Trouble to come play with me? Oh. It was a whim. And they said, that's a really good idea. And I didn't think anything of it. And like 2 weeks later, I got a phone call that said, Double Trouble heard your disc, and they said they'll come do the gig with you.
Whoa.
I was so scared. I was scared right from that point on. I was like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I'm literally like less than 100 gigs. So Double Trouble, here they come from Austin, Texas, Chris Layton and Tommy Shannon, the only band that I ever listened to. Here they come to play with me.
Jeez.
And I'll get into if you like stories, I'll tell you the whole thing. I mean, we had a night before this gig. I haven't really told this story, maybe a couple times over the years, but they came in and to test me out, they started to jam on some Hendrix. Oh, we had a rehearsal place, and they started to jam on some Hendrix. Well, I didn't know any Hendrix at all. Still to this day, I really don't know a lot of Hendrix. I like Hendrix, but I don't know a lot. I don't learn people's stuff. I just play my own stuff and kind of listen to their stuff, and then try to incorporate that into my stuff. And
that makes sense.
It goes and learns everybody's styles. I wish I could, but I just don't have the time or the patience probably at this time in my life. But right. So they started jamming on Hendrix, and I sat there like a deer in the headlights, and I was like, guys, I don't know. I don't know any.
Oh no.
You don't know any Hendrix? They both looked at me. I remember I was like, no. And they didn't say anything, but they told me as the story goes on, they told me that they thought they didn't know what they got themselves into. They told me this after, like when I was down there. They said, "Oh my God, this guy doesn't know any Hendrix. What's he doing here?" So, anyways, I remember Tommy Shannon was in a cast. He had his foot operated on or something, and he could hardly walk around. And here comes the next day, and we go to the RPR Fieldhouse. Now, what's weird about this is the last place I saw Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble play was the RPI Fieldhouse.
Oh, wow.
Last time I was in the RPI Fieldhouse was when I watched Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble play. So here I am walking back into the Fieldhouse, and now I'm fronting that band.
Jeez.
I'm less than 100 gigs in. I'm telling you, I was like, I bet I had 75 on me. I don't even know what it was. I was brand new to it. This all happened really kind of quickly in the beginning for me, all these little things taking place. So I had watched videos of Stevie Ray Vaughan, like live at the Macombo or anything I could get my hands on. Not so much to watch Stevie some more. It was to watch what they were doing. So I knew what to expect on stage.
That makes sense.
How did they react? What did they do? What was I about to experience? Because I don't know. I'm going on stage with my idols here. I'm walking up to the executioner and saying, here's the act, you know? And we started playing, and, you know, of course there's a good crowd. I remember there was the other acts, they brought in more acts. I remember it was Bernard Allison and it was Chris Duarte was the other two acts.
I like
we were the last act. So I got to watch those guys rip it up, you know, both Chris and Bernard play like crazy. I'm like, oh my God, I got to go out in front, double trouble. Yeah. You know, that's all I could think about. And I remember, if you like stories, I'll just tell you
stories.
So I remember we're backstage and Tommy's playing his bass. He's warming up on his bass. And Chris has got a drum pad and he's on the hassock and he's drumming on the hassock and he's warming himself up. And my wife walks in and I'm eating chocolate chip cookies. And she said, "What are you doing?" See that they're warming up. And I was so nervous. I couldn't even eat. I was so scared. I was eating cookies to like, you know, warm myself up. And we walked out on stage and we played. And I didn't have the gumption to look around. And about the second song, I looked back. And what I noticed in the videos is Tommy hardly smiled. He just played, and he kind of watched Stevie, and he just played. And I look over at Tommy, and he's got a cast on his foot. He could hardly walk up on the stage, and he's dancing on the stage.
Wow.
He's smiling at me. And I look back at Chris, and then Chris, too, would very, very, you know, straight emotion with a, you know, half smile, maybe occasionally in the videos and stuff. He's very straight. And I look back, and he's like giving me the go for it, like smiling, like, you know, the really like, and I could tell. And then I was just like, okay, let's go, shifting gears now. And then we get out of, and then we took off.
That is awesome.
And then because it was an afternoon gig that we played, it was like, I don't know, we played like 4:00 in the afternoon or something. So I was able to book another gig in Saratoga, New York, which I don't know if you ever heard of Saratoga racetracks where the horses. So we booked a gig up there at a big venue, and right after that RPI Fieldhouse gig, we went up to the other gig and we set up there and we played, and
wow,
we had an amazing night, and went till like, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning or whatever it was. We were just playing all night and having a blast, and we were, you know, we're packing up, and they're, you know, I had to drive them back to Troy, which is, I don't know, 40 minutes down the street, 35 minutes down the street.
Okay.
And we're driving down, and I'm driving them, and they're like, "Albert, what we heard on your demo, what we heard tonight is there's not even a comparison." He said, "You need to get an album made. You need to get a real album made."
Oh, wow.
And so I would love to, but I have no idea on how to do that. I have no clue where to even start with that. And they said, "Well, we do. And we want you to come to Austin, Texas, and we want to produce your next album. We want to play on it."
Oh, and wow.
And this is like 2:00 in the morning, and I'm driving this thing, and I'm like, literally, my chin is resting on the steering wheel, basically, because I'm in shock of what they're saying. And I drove by 2 exits on the highway.
Oh no!
Because I was so like, I couldn't believe what was happening, and I had to apologize. I was like, "Guys, I drove by 2 exits. That's going to cost another half an hour to get you back. I'm sorry. I can't even believe what you're talking about." And I brought him, finally got back to the hotel, and we exchanged numbers. And even at that point, I was like, am I going to hear from these guys again? And you know what I mean? I mean, because even then it was like, you start to get starting to get a sense of a lot of people you meet in the music world. Everybody's, now, you know, they're the biggest thing in the world. You know what I mean? It's the ones that won't tell you anything about themselves that are really hooked. But the guys that come on and, oh, I can do this. Those are the ones you want to stay away from. That's what you learn later in life.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, sure enough, like 2 or 3 days later, Chris called and said, "Hey, man, we got this all set up. And, you know, we're going to go to Willie Nelson's nephew's studio. And we're going to go here. And we're going to this. And we're going, you know, and I was like, "Oh, great. You know, great. I'll be there." And the date came up, and I'm going to the airport, and and I'm waiting for my plane, to board the plane. And Chris calls me again. He says, "Hey man," he said, "we decided we're going to bring Reese down for this." Oh. And I'm like, "Reese Winans?" He's like, "Yeah." So, I mean, now I'm even more nervous. Now it's the first time that Double Trouble, as the real Stevie Ray Vaughan Double Trouble, the real three guys, Reese, Tommy, Chris, did an entire album with an artist. They had recorded, like they were working on their own album. They were doing songs with different artists here and there, but they hadn't done an album with somebody.
Right.
And I was the guy, dogs in the background.
Oh, no worries. I got two of my own wandering around too. So
there's a deer out there. I just saw it out the window.
See, that's what makes podcasting awesome.
Yeah. So then I went to Austin, Texas, and spent 19 days with those guys, and it was like a master's class and everything. I mean, I get down there and be like, "Well, who'd you listen to, Albert?" I'm like, "You guys."
Yeah.
Who are your influences? Who do you like? And you guys. No, it was just absolutely amazing. It was just an amazing experience. And I mean, that show was kind of a pivotal show for me, because at the same time I remember one of BB King's co-managers at the time came to see me at the show.
Oh, wow.
That spawned into me playing for BB King out of that show too. Yeah.
That is amazing.
A lot of things happened on that one little thing. You never know what's going to happen good, or you never know if something happens, and then it could be 3 years later, somebody will say, "I saw this and I always wanted to have you here and I just couldn't get it together. Now I finally got you," but it spawned from that.
Yeah.
And you never know who's watching you and what you're doing. So
Exactly.
You just don't know where things come from. And I find people always ask, "What was your big break?" I'm like, yeah, I don't really. I mean, maybe that show is the biggest of my breaks, but I don't see them as big breaks. I see them as small little steps. Each one, as long as it's heading in the right direction, gets you to where you're going to go. And without one, you can't get to the other one. You can't. And they're little steps, but the journey of 1,000 miles begins with that first step. And it's like, you just got to keep moving forward.
That's so true. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Hey guys, I want to talk to you about socks for a second. Why not? It's a music podcast. But I tried a pair of socks from Boldfoot and loved them. I've only worn them once because my kids have stolen them. So in my household, that's the best endorsement I can give. And I guess it's fitting because the design I chose was Jailbird. The design I chose was Jailbird. I might keep that in. The socks are 100% American made, and 5% of all proceeds go to veteran charities. It makes sense, seeing that Boldfoot is a family and veteran-owned company. They have a huge variety of styles. So check out boldfoot.com and buy some of the best socks you've ever slapped on your feet. And help veterans while you're at it. That's boldfoot.com.
And that's all I've ever done. So
at that point, you weren't even really a huge student of the blues or anything, right? You were.
No, I wasn't.
That's amazing.
After that night at the wedding, that I played with that band, I remember starting to think about how to learn more about it. I mean, at that time, I'm not sure I knew much about any blues guys or anybody. I was like, so I started. I mean, I always say Stevie opened that door for me, because once you open that door, that's a long hallway.
Yeah.
It's full of doors. Yep. Every door is, each artist, we all have a hallway, and we all have all our influences live on that floor. and you open up the first door with Stevie, you're going right into Albert King's room.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? That's how it lived. And then you open up the next one, it's like BB or Freddie King and Johnny Copeland and all these people that he would study. You open their door, and then you start figuring out who they like. Then you go listen to what they listened to, which inspired them. And then you start hearing, wow, that's where he got that lick from. And that's where I can hear his vocal phrasing coming from this guy. You know what I mean? You can trace them like it's like a DNA footprint of sound.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I love it, you know, and I'm still doing it. I'm just the other day, I got under these two new guys, and I was like, how did I not know about these people? And I start to listen to their stuff.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love. And that's why one of the reasons I love doing this podcast is because I've learned about all kinds of new people. And then I hear about their influences, and it's just endless.
Yeah. So tell me about your podcast, man. Wow. So
sure.
I don't even know where you are. Are you in Virginia?
Yeah, I'm in Winchester, Virginia. Home of Patsy Cline.
Oh, no kidding.
Yep. She's our hometown hero. She's everywhere around here.
Is she buried there now?
Yeah. They've got all kinds of markers and memorials and stuff. So, yeah, she's buried right down the road.
Very cool.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I started doing this podcast about 3 years ago. I just released episode 275. And
wow.
Yeah. And then, yeah. I blame that on my kids, because without them, I used to be a photographer. And, when my wife and I got married and started having kids, I kind of needed a steadier income. So
it never hurts.
Yeah, that moved to hobby status and got into sales. And behind the camera, I could be quiet and just not deal with people, but that doesn't work so good when you're in sales. So
nice.
So broke out of my shell. Started off doing sports. I mean, I've done about almost 500 shows in total with two other podcasts that I had done previously. So they were both sports centered, sports and comedy. So
nice.
Yeah. So then they ended, and this one started, and this one I do all by myself, and it's been the longest running one so far.
Great.
Yeah. So had a lot of awesome people on. Got some new favorites. Heard some awesome people like you, and just blown away by the amount of just wonderful people I've been able to meet. So
yeah, nice.
Yeah,
it's a cool thing to do.
Well, one of the questions that I had is, you start off with trumpet and banjo. Were you also singing early on, or did that come later?
Well, no, I that was the hardest thing, and that's I don't know what that is, you know. And it's a hard. You know, I know a lot of guitarists that can rip the guitar, just shred the thing, but they can't sing a note. It's like wow, how do you? I don't know. So I consider myself lucky, and I don't know. That might sound arrogant to say, yeah, I think I can sing, but I think I can sing.
I think you can sing for sure.
At least I get by with it. What's interesting, to go back to the album, talk about 10, is on that album, there's a song called Beautiful Bride. And that song I wrote for my wife and sang at our wedding. You're my warmth when I'm cold. You're the one I'll be with when I grow old. You're the petals on my rose. You're the sun and the rain, it makes me grow. You're my umbrella when it rains. You're my rescue when I'm in vain. When it's sunny, you're my shade. And I was 21 years old at that time, so I just sang it by myself. You know, 27 was the first time I played with a band, but 21 was the first time I ever got up and played for somebody, sang in public. But I was so nervous, I didn't I didn't feel any stage bugging. I was just like, I had to get through it.
You don't do anything halfway, do you?
Not really. It's like, if something scares me, it draws me in. That's how it is. Something intimidates me, it draws me to it.
You sing at your wedding. You got a big show coming up. Hey, let's get Double Trouble. All right, yeah.
Hey, how you doing? I know. I gotta start coming up with better things.
I don't know, man. You're doing a pretty good job of it already.
Yeah.
You don't ease into anything.
Let's join that billionaires club.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, see, should have thought of that one years ago.
Why did I say that when I was
Why not just
20?
make $1 billion?
So I had actually recorded that song on when I did with Double Trouble. And they didn't want to put a band on. I kind of wanted a big sound of that song back even when I first recorded it. And they were like, no, I think just you and Reese should do it. So I did it with acoustic guitar, and Reese just backed me, and I kind of sang it and played it just like I did by myself,
Yeah.
And I always wanted like strings behind it, and I always wanted it to be like a song, like a Wonderful Tonight type of song, you know what I mean? That people, because that song, when I first recorded that with Double Trouble, I mean, I had people, I had one guy fly me to Austin, Texas to sing that at his 10th anniversary. It's like,
wow,
they love that song. That song is like, but nobody's heard it. You know what I mean? Really, nobody's heard that song yet. I really, other than the few people that have got the album or whatever, you know what I mean? That song, I still think that song's got its day that'll come.
Is that on True to Yourself?
No, it's on 10.
Okay, that's what I was just curious, because I was looking at when you mentioned you played it with Double Trouble. I figured, let me go back and take a look.
From the Heart. From the Heart was the first one.
Oh, okay.
From the Heart's what I did with Stevie's band, and that came from Stevie Ray Vaughan. That name came from the Heart, because while I was in the studio, I remember I asked Chris and Tommy, what would Stevie tell me to do? What would he tell me to play? And they said he'd tell you to play From the Heart. So bang, there's the name of the album. It named itself easily. That's
awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, that song, it's a special song. If you know anybody's getting married, if you know the groom or whatever.
Yeah. I made a note on that how it's one of my favorites on the album. I made a
no kidding.
Of the my
it's a special song, and I finally got to a place where I had the musicians and had everybody, so I brought it back out because I never felt like I got it the way I wanted it in the beginning, and my wife still likes the first one.
It's very lush. I love the strings on it. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
you got it. You got your wish, man. That came out so wonderfully.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think it did too. It's really, really nice to have it.
So one of the other cool things I noticed on the Someone Like You album, Jimmy Vivino plays on that.
Someone Like, yeah, that was really fun.
How did you get hooked up with Jimmy?
He's a great guy, and he's such a talented, like when I say I don't know people's styles and stuff, Jimmy can tell you every style about them and their gauge of strings they use and what amps they use just by listening to it. You know what I mean? He's just a genius. He's just a musical genius. And we did that record in West Hollywood, California, and I had talked to Jimmy a few times over the years for basic things, kind of met him through just guitar player world, and yeah, he called me. He says, "Hey, Albert, that studio you're going to be at in West Hollywood," he says, "that's like just down the street from my house." I said, "You got to be kidding me." He's like, "Yeah." He said, "Would you mind if I stopped in and, maybe listen, maybe even played on a song or two with you?" And I said, "Are you kidding me? Of course." So he did. He came. He's on 3 songs on that record.
I woke up this morning, I had a bird on my windowsill. I said I woke up this morning, I had a bird on my windowsill.
That is,
and, you know, he just jumped in. He knew all the people in the band out there. I mean, they were all the greatest guys in California. It was great, you know, and he's just such a nice guy. And then after we did the record, he's like, "Hey, we're filming Conan. You know, why don't you come down?" And I remember it was my last night of finishing the record, and I said, "Well, if we finish, I'll come down." I really wanted to go, you know.
Yeah.
And so we finished up early, luckily, and I sped over there and got to get on set with Jimmy. And
Oh wow.
he's like, "I want you to meet Conan." And you know, I didn't really think I'd get a chance to meet him. He's like, Jimmy was like insistent, "No, I want you to meet him." And I was like, "All right."
Okay.
So sure enough, like, well, a couple times he's like, you know, he's in a meeting and he's been. I'm like, "Oh, it's all right, man.
Yeah.
I don't. It's fine."
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
sure enough, he put the feelers out, and Conan walks in the door, and he came in with a script for that show, and he signed the script, and he said, "Albert, teach me how to play above the 8th fret." You know. And he's like, "Here, check out my 50." He's got, you know, he had a vault of guitars.
Oh, yeah.
Because Conan Blake plays guitar.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, "Check out my 58 Strat, man." He's like, he hands it to me. He's like,
Oh my God.
"Oh my God, this is so cool." It was so fun to hang with for a few minutes, you know. It was just like,
awesome.
it was just, then I got to watch and see him do the show and watch Jimmy just run the band. And it was just such an experience to watch, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, and like you said, you know, you just never know what one thing is going to lead to.
But you got to keep your arms open. You know what I mean? Not like this.
Yep.
You can't close them off. You got to keep them open. You got to let the world come to you.
Exactly. You got to say yes to things.
Exactly.
So you've also played live with some amazing people. B.B. King, Johnny Winter, Buddy Guy. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, do you still get kind of nervous playing with these guys, or is it you kind of used to it at this point?
Well, so I'm going to talk about B.B. King now, because I spent a lot of time with B.B.
Awesome.
and became very good friends with him. And it's one of my most honored things in my whole life was to become friends with my greatest idol ever. And we talked about this very thing. And your show reminds me of this, you know, the name of your show reminds me of this very thought.
Oh, cool.
BB would talk about that after 60 some years of doing music, he still feels the feeling before a show. And he talked about, it's not nerves. It's not that you're nervous. It's that you're excited.
Okay.
If you go out at a show and you think you're nervous, you paralyze yourself. You can kill yourself, right? You can like, "Oh my God, I'm so nervous. I remember this. I told you I was eating chocolate chip cookies," and you know, that's what I thought was nerves.
Right.
But it's excitement. If you look at it as excitement, you can actually improve you can harness it. You can put it to work for you.
That's amazing.
So if I get feeling where I think it's nervousness, I just say, I'm like, on this record, I had it, you know, I was in with the greatest players in Nashville. Like, you know, you got Vince Gill joining the record. I'm in Peter Frampton's studio. I'm in like, holy my, if I thought of this as nerves, I'd cripple myself.
That's awesome.
It's a way to think of it. I tell people all the time, it's like, man, don't think of it as nervousness. But you know, some people it really is. Some people it's not excitement. It's total like panic. It's like how they react. It's like, I don't react like that. I just like, so that's how I think of it. And that came directly from B.B. King's advice.
That's amazing.
Yeah. The anxiety, you know, performance anxiety that's just excitement.
So you're known, I guess your genre is blues, but you don't just stick to blues. I mean, I hear some country in there and a lot of other things. Is that fair?
Well, you know, I don't know. You really don't, you know, you come out with your first album and it's with Double Trouble. I mean, people jumped all over me about that. You know, it was like, I was excited to just play with my idol. But
no kidding.
There's the diehard Stevie Ray Vaughan fans like that, and especially if he was a guitarist. I mean, oh my God, they were offended that somebody that didn't have any experience got up with Double Trouble and, oh, you're just trying to, you just want to be Stevie Ray Vaughan. To this day, I couldn't play a Stevie Ray Vaughan. No, I don't learn people's stuff. I just don't. There's guys that can play that stuff perfectly. I can't. But and I couldn't even carry his guitar case as far as I see. Where I see Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Well, you play Albert Cummings music. You don't play Stevie Ray Vaughan music.
That's pretty much it. I've had people come up and throw $100 bill at my feet. It's like, hey, play this song. I'm like, wrong guy. I don't know.
But see, I love that.
I'll be lucky if you name one of my songs that I can play it. Give me $100 for that.
Well, here's one. I went back and I listened to a bunch of your back catalog, and I got to say, I love Glass House. That song kicks ass. That's just an awesome riff.
My wife likes that song too.
That is so great. It's just, what I like is that once you started, you've just released stuff on a regular basis, very consistently, and it's some live, some studio stuff, but it's been very consistently. You don't let grass grow under your feet. That's one of the things that I've always loved about.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say it. I should start I think I'd start opening my set with that thing, because it's like it kicks right into gear and kind of lets you know there's something about to happen. That's yeah.
It does. Now, when you're recording, are you playing with different people? Does your band change a lot between recording and playing live, or have you been stuck with the same people?
Well, usually I'll go to the studio, and I kind of pick the city I want to go to, because I don't know, I think every city has a different vibe.
Oh yeah,
and different musicians, and different feel, and different everything. And Glass House we did in Memphis. That was on an album called No Regrets, which was the first time I kind of let a little of my country stuff out,
Right.
And I never answered your question about that, but you get pegged in the blues. You come out, you do an album with Stevie Ray Vaughan's band, and you play in your face guitar. Where else do they put you? You know, you're in the blues genre. So
you play Strat.
It's a double-edged sword, because I love that, but it's also, there's a lot of, my hallway reference, there's a lot of different influences in my hallway, from Bill Monroe to Stevie Ray Vaughan. You know what I mean? It's a wide range of people. And so I don't know, what am I supposed to do? Not be real to myself and play that stuff? I mean, I've had some pretty nasty statements, like people are getting mad, don't sing that country crap. You can't, don't bother singing. It's like,
wow.
Well, it's just what I'm singing. I'm not trying to be anybody. I'm not just playing what's in me. I'm just letting my music out. You don't like it, listen to somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. That's amazing.
Everybody's got an opinion. Of course, it's always better than yours. Yeah.
That is true.
At least to them it is. Yeah. So I don't know. I left. The song on there, Meet the Man, I mean, that's kind of a gospel song. What do you think? Have you listened to that song?
Yes.
I guess it's time to be on my way. I'm going home, way up yonder. I'm going home to the promised land. I'm going home, way up yonder.
trying to think if that was the one that that one. What I liked about that, I heard a quote. I think it was Buddy Guy years ago. I don't even know. I mean, decades ago, said that, and I'm paraphrasing, but I believe he said the blues is the hardest type of music to play because it's very difficult to sound unique. It's hard to move it forward.
Yeah, that's so true.
But I think that's what I like about Meet the Man is that it's got a bluesiness to it, but it's different. It sounds different for sure. And I think that's one of those songs that kind of moves the genre forward a little bit. And that's one of the things I really enjoyed about this album.
Yeah, I've never heard that quote from Buddy, but it makes sense. And Buddy would know.
Buddy. I think it was. I could be wrong.
Like, it's so true, and that's what I find funny. It's like I meet a lot of like music students, and I won't mention any schools in particular.
Right.
And they always come out with the same thing. Oh yeah, the blues. That's what I started out playing. I learned that first. Like, you didn't learn anything, man. No. If you even said that, you've not even advanced. You've not even you haven't even got to the second gear yet.
Right.
Or even to say that, because it is so complicated, because it's not about it's not playing what you know. It's playing what you feel.
Yes.
And that's where it comes in. And if you're playing what you know, you're going to be the guy Buddy Guy's talking about. You are going to be sounding like everybody else.
Yeah.
Because if you that's why I don't learn people's stuff. You learn their stuff and you play their stuff. Now you sound like them. Like, I never had a lesson. I don't even believe in the lessons. If you want to really do it, I mean, I'd love to have some lessons on some like, I wish I could sit down with Tommy Emmanuel I wish you could lock me in like a lake house somewhere or something. I wouldn't even fish. I'd sit there all day and watch him play, because I don't even know what planet he's on. It's just nuts. He's talk about the greatest guitarist in the world.
Yeah.
He's not out there claiming it.
No.
He should be. That's what I tell you. The guys that tell you that they're the best, there you go.
Yep.
Tommy's not telling you he's the best.
That's a perfect example. Yeah.
And I'm not conceited, because that's an imperfection, and I'm perfect.
I love it.
But when you're playing what you feel, you are playing yourself, because nobody else is feeling the way you feel. So you are now becoming your own style. And that is so hard, because you have to put away everything else that you know and have.
Yeah.
I mean, you can use those little things. You can, like B.B. King, another thing he told me, he says, we don't steal licks, we borrow them. And he looked at me and winked. It's like, we just borrow them.
That is awesome.
You can keep it. You can keep it. I'm just going to use it for a second, and then I'll give it right back to you.
Well, I think maybe starting a little later in your life helped you with blues, because if you don't live a life, your blues aren't going to sound authentic. And
that's very true too, and
I think maybe you starting at 27, so you avoided the 27 club, because you didn't die at 27, you just started at 27.
I know. Yes.
So perhaps that helped your blues a bit, because you had a career, you had a family, you lived life, and
I want to maybe the 110 club, maybe.
Yeah. Hey, I'm in with that one. We'll start that one. After we do that $1 billion thing.
It's so true. I think the same thing. I mean, it's there's so many. I don't want to sound like this old cantankerous guy, but it's like, man, the music becomes more meaningful the older people get. They get a little track, they get a little wear on their tires. Yeah. And they get older, and they've covered some ground, right? So they have more experiences they can write about and talk about. And that all comes, that's what the blues is to me. I mean, it doesn't, people always say, oh, you should have done this when you were like 20. It's like, I didn't know anything about life or anything about anybody, myself, or anything at 20.
Yeah, you couldn't do it at 20.
I can't do what I do now, but
right.
But on the other hand, maybe I'd be better now if I did start, you know what I mean? So it never hurts to start it.
Right.
As early as you can, but.
So you've got the new album came out a couple of months ago, 10. aptly named because it's your 10th album.
Right.
There's a kind of a different feeling to this one compared to your other ones. It's like, it's hard to put a finger on it. It's kind of like everything just went up a level. And I don't want it to sound like your other stuff wasn't good, but what I'm saying, it's just kind of the quality of everything just stepped up another step, and it's so good. I mean, and you've got some amazing people on the album too. Like, produced by Chuck Ainley, right? Yeah,
Chuck Ainley, and there's your main factor right there. Like, genius.
Yeah,
just he's like, Chuck's the type of guy. Well, I'm pretty good at turning knobs. Yeah, you're pretty good at turning knobs, Chuck.
I love people like that.
That's how humble he is. It was like, but I was a builder my whole life, and once a builder, always a builder. So I'm a builder my whole life, and I'd always say that the house that I'm building is my best house because everything I've learned from that point up is now going into the house I'm working on, right? Everything you learn, you put it in. The albums are the same thing. Everything you learn is now part of what you're doing. So the older you get, hopefully the better you become. And that's what happened with this album. I think my writing was a lot better, and my whole approach and my acknowledgement of the anxiety, that feeling of excitement, you know what I mean? I kind of harnessed all that. And then now on top of that, now you take Chuck Ainley, and then Chuck brings in the first call players in Nashville. And
I saw, you
got, I don't know if you saw the names, but Greg Morrow's on drums, and Greg is like the guy on all the ZZ Top albums, I think. He's like on everybody from the Dixie Chicks to George Strait to everybody,
That's
it's like
amazing.
He is one of the, and Rob McNally is on guitar, and Rob is probably the greatest guitarist I've ever even been next to. But he was so good that he was able to complement and not compete. You know what I mean? He was just, and we had totally different, and we had total respect for each other, but totally different. Rob knows everybody's stuff because of his job. He makes his living with that guitar, and he can pick it up and say, Chuck could say, "Dad, try this. Give me this, will you, Rob?" And he'd switch it right up and give you something else, completely different sound.
Wow.
Or grab the slide, or grab a different guitar, make a different amp. He could change. He could just change it all like that. And I'm like, I got one guitar. It's like, maybe I had a second one. I had a little telly with me or something, but just great. And then you got Michael Rojas on piano and organ and keys and Wurlitzer. He did all that stuff, and he was just a genius. And then Glenn Worf is like the bass player of Nashville,
Yeah.
And like Vince Gill said, I remember you like stories, so
yeah,
I'm in the main room with Greg's drums, and we're and my phone and Peter Frampton's studio. He has his guitars all up on the walls, around in the studio. So my phone rings, and it's Vince Gill, and I remember talking on the phone. I'm like, he's like, "How's it going, Albert?" And I said, I'm standing in Peter Frampton's studio, and I'm looking at his SG on the wall that he played on Humble Pie, and I'm talking to Vince Gill." And he laughed. He's like, "Watch what you wish for." And then he asked me who the players were, and he says, "You got the best players in Nashville on that record." And he also said that he wished I could take my enthusiasm for the recording studio and pass it out around Nashville, because so many guys, he said, "You sound like you're having so much fun." I'm like, I am. I love this. This is it. This is everything.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Yeah, a lot of players aren't like that, Albert." Well, I am.
See, like I said, you don't half-ass anything. You get Double Trouble, then you get Chuck Ainley, you get all these great session players, you get Vince Gill on your album. You go full.
It's kind of crazy.
It's amazing. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
I was listening to the album, and I think currently my favorite track is "She's the One."
When she holds your hand, are you proud to be her man? When she talks to you, do you understand? If you had your choice,
I mean, the guitar playing is amazing, but the lyrics are absolutely beautiful, and your singing on that track is probably the best you've recorded. It's such a great song.
I love that song. I love that song. And so I have two sons, right? When they're 21, 25. And that song came from that. Like,
wow.
It was basically like, here's my advice to you. If you're going to find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Like, here's the checklist. And that's, bingo, I got a song. If I got an idea, I'll give you a song, like seconds.
Yeah.
And that's where the song came from. And I love that song, the build up and all about it. And, I haven't started to really even do that live yet. It's like, it's a big song, and I want to make sure I'm ready for it. And I haven't been playing a lot. We're about to get busy, so I gotta get that song out. Get ready.
Yeah, I saw you got a bunch of tour dates coming up now. So that brings up the next question I have for you. You've had a full-time job. You're in construction. Mm-hmm. Is touring difficult for you, or do you tour a lot?
No, it's very easy to run two careers. And, there's no stress at all when you go on the road and your wife's running the construction company.
It's excitement, right?
Yeah, nothing. It's a piece of cake. No, it's absolute misery. So I think what 10 is hopefully enabling me to do is to really play music. So that's what I'm excited about. So
I hope
that's what we're hoping for, and that's what it looks like. So that's what we're going to go.
I really hope so.
Starting a little late, but it doesn't matter to me. It's like, it's my time.
Exactly. Do you use a lot of vintage equipment when you're playing, or is it more newer equipment? Because you've got an amazing sound, an amazing blues sound.
Well, the only thing that was vintage on that record was Peter Frampton had a room full of amps, and he had a nice little 63 Vibroverb brown face. And I usually use a Fender Vibro King amp, which is they don't even make it anymore, but it was like a kind of a hand-wired powerful amp that they made for a while. And I like it's a little too raw by itself, even though it's fine, but I like to put a smaller amp with it, and it gives it a little sweetness, and I run them stereo, and it just kind of all that sound coming out.
Oh, nice.
Does it for me. So when we got to the studio, he had a little Vibroverb, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll put that with a Vibro King. And we did, and it sounded great.
Oh, man. So, all right. So let me ask you this before we start to wrap up here. Mention that quote from Buddy Guy, that it's hard to move the genre of blues forward. Is there a song on 10 that you kind of think maybe does that you really think goes beyond just being a blues song to help hopefully move that forward?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that would be, I would feel arrogant as heck to even say, there's anything on my album that's going to move it forward. But the one thing that I can say about that album is I have this line in my head that I want to put into a song someday, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just use it as my quote. But it's simply that advice to another player or a younger guy coming up or whatever. It'd be like, you've got to get the people believing that there's more to the blues than lying and leaving. And that is what happens. How many times can you write about my baby left me this morning?
Yep.
It's like, she done me wrong and all this baloney. It's like, yeah, that was great in the 50s.
Yeah.
That really hit it right off in the 50s.
Yeah.
But we're not driving around 50s cars. You know what I mean? If you're going to advance the genre, you have to bring it to people in a way they understand. Just like, I don't know. They're pushing to change the cars, electric cars or whatever. We're not driving 57 Chevys.
Right. Terraplane blues is going to work. Now it's going to be Tesla blues.
And BB always felt that way, that the blues will evolve. And I don't know. I think Buddy's a little more traditional, so I don't know if he wants it to evolve or change.
Well, there'll always be purists out there.
Yeah, that's fine. But but you'll always have it. So you got the bird in the hand. You got Howlin' Wolf. You got Muddy. You got all that stuff. You got all that stuff here. Is that all you want? Should we shut the door, or should we tell everybody to sell their guitars and stop?
It's all been done then.
Or do we want everybody to copy them? That's why I'm like, not doing it. I'm not going to do songs like that. And I'm not, I'm going to try to bring somebody something that's new. And that'll be my quest for every album I do. So I don't know. I think if everybody started doing that, maybe your question, maybe cumulatively we can all help it evolve.
Right. Okay.
And again, it's a big, long hallway.
Yeah.
Right? There was a term that I heard that blues is a big house, but there's a room for everyone.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yep.
And, that's like, it's a huge, I kind of go with that hallway. And it's like, hey, go down and check out room 7. That's your traditional guy right in there.
Exactly.
Go check him out. But don't go there. Don't. I mean, I love to play the traditional stuff, but I'm on the front lines of crowds. And I could throw one or two out there and everybody's going to love them. But if I tried to do that all night long, I'm not getting back to that theater, or I'm not going to bring that crowd back to me. I have to bring them something that you don't have anywhere else. I have to be myself.
Exactly.
Because my favorite quote is, be yourself because everybody else is taken.
That's true. That's another great reason not to learn too many cover songs.
Yeah, it's fun to get you $100 bill every once in a while. Oh, nothing.
Albert, this has been just a blast. Where can people pick up the album, and how can they follow you on social media and get? Well, I know you got a bunch of tour dates coming up.
Yeah, albertcummings.com is the best place to start. Pretty much, that's pretty up to date and letting everybody know what's happening and where we're going and what's going on and latest news. And
it's got your social media links on it.
And then, just check it out. There's a lot of things happening. A lot of been getting a lot of nice reviews. We got, some of the guitar magazines been writing up things. We got a nice piece coming out in Vintage Guitar soon.
Oh, nice.
And so that's all exciting. It's all exciting stuff, but it'll all be available on albertcummings.com. That's the best place to start. And I mean, you can get the album there. You can get it on any media source or anywhere. So
wherever you can get music, you can get it.
Pretty much, yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, then, I've enjoyed this so much.
Yeah, me too.
I went to the doctor, told him I was ill. I said, Doc, give me something, maybe some kind of pill. He hit me on the knee with that little hammer that he had. And then he looked in my eyes and said, boy, you got it bad. There ain't but one thing to do. You better call up the band. You need to get out on the road, boy, just as fast as you can.